What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller, Shane Black from Hook'emHeadlines.com. Maybe eventually Tarek Lacour as well. We will see. Might be joining us later. But we are taking a look today at the Stanford Super Regional. We are recording this on the night of June 9th. So we have what's a little less than 24 hours from first pitch at the time of recording this for Texas Stanford in game one. First pitch is 3 p.m. Central Time on June 10th. And then game two will be Sunday and Monday if necessary. Game three will be Monday if necessary. I believe no game times yet for games 2 or 3. But yeah, I'm ecstatic that we're talking about Texas in a super regional. As you mentioned in our video last week for the Coral Gables regional preview, anytime we can have an extra weekend of baseball, it's fun. It's nice to cover. Gives you something to talk about in early to mid-June. That's not like football recruiting. So all down for that. I think for this, we're mostly just going to take a high-level look at this regional or at this super regional. So, if you're just tuning in for the weekend, or if you're kind of like if you're just an occasional watch for Texas baseball, then hopefully this can give you some additional information on each team, specifically Texas, but what the matchup could look like. Just kind of recap from last weekend, Texas. I painted this scenario, and I think we both talked about it, where like if Texas was going to win the regional, that's kind of what they had to do, where you just kind of had to catch fire and just scorch through the regional. And that's what Texas did, went 3-0, got fantastic performances on the mound on Friday from Lucas Gordon against Louisiana. Then on Saturday, that complete game gem against Miami from LeBaron Johnson. And Sunday, you saw Tanner Witt get knocked around a little bit. That's tough for the direction of his game since he's returned from injury, but speed bumps are going to happen, especially when he returned at such a late time in the season. But then bullpen came in and cleaned things up outside of a 3-run home run late from Miami. The bullpen did pretty well on not just on Sunday, but throughout the weekend. The bats came alive when they needed to. That 9-run was at a third inning against Miami. Kind of won the weekend. And so here we are, Texas facing number 9 Stanford. Stanford got here by, they had winner take all game. Was that last Monday against Texas A&M? At one point, actually, it looked like there would be a Texas A&M Super Regional because A&M was 1 win away. Stanford had to win 2, and sure enough, Stanford won 2. God, man, A&M just doesn't.
They're avoiding us, huh?
Yeah. Would they have No, we would have hosted that super regional.
So that was the debate online, and because the committee, they decided, so it's up to their discretion. So there was big debate online, and Texas holding the head-to-head regular
need to
season
reseed.
Yeah, I agree. But Texas had the higher RPI, held the head-to-head regular season record, and won the Big 12 regular season. So I think it probably would have been in Austin. So thank you, Aggies, for sending us out to Palo Alto. And I think that could be a problem here because you see in June baseball how electric some of these atmospheres can be, especially in the super. That's fair. That's fair.
It's one of the least electric fan bases in college sports. Smart school, smart people, just not very energetic when it comes to sports.
That's fair. It's definitely not like going to Baton Rouge. But I do think it should be taken into account. Texas traveled all the way down to Miami last weekend and then completely back across the country to Palo Alto this weekend. That said, I think it's a win super. And we've seen this Texas team all year long. They've peaks and valleys. Last weekend was a high of a peak as you can get. Came out, like you said, and really just dominated 3 straight games. And that's kind of their path because of the bullpen depth or lack thereof. So I'm riding high with this Texas team right now. We'll get into the matchups and stuff. But think it's going to start Saturday night. We really need a good start from Lucas Gordon. If Texas is to win this series, I do think they need to take Saturday. I don't think they'd be in a strong position, obviously, if they lose the first game, but for this specific roster makeup, I really do think they need to win Gordon's start.
I agree. You can't, knowing that it's pretty much Lucas Gordon, LeBaron Johnson, especially against a lineup as good as Stanford's. I don't think I'd hesitate to say that Stanford's a better lineup than Miami. Miami's
I'd agree.
Solid team, solid offensively, but Stanford's one of the best in the country, best in the Pac-12. You need to take the first game. Let me ask you this though. Are you more confident in Texas? I think I know the answer to this question, but are you more confident in Texas this year against Stanford or when Texas faced ECU last year in the Greenville Super Regional?
So I actually tweeted out a picture. I was going back watching highlights from that Super Regional just because of the way it turned out. It's fun to go back and watch.
Yeah.
That Texas lineup it was so solid, 1 through 9. And being able to throw Pete Hansen, and you have Tristan Stevens, who kind of turned into put him in whenever you need him type pitcher towards the end of the year. I think that team was better. And
yeah,
I think the ECU team was probably a little better than the Stanford team as well. I still think that I was more confident in the Longhorns last year. I like I said, I tweeted out a picture of that lineup. It was crazy, the depth and the talent in that lineup. Just so many guys. I think almost everyone hitting over 300 besides I think Daly. And when Dylan Campbell is, I think he was hitting 7th or 8th in the Greenville Supers last year. Obviously, he became the hero, but now he's your best hitter. That's how you progress in college baseball. But it just speaks to the depth of last year's lineup.
Yeah. I mean, that team, it started to, they started to put it not all together because like they never really, and obviously they had a letdown in the College World Series, but yeah, you had that confidence behind, that team was at one point the number 1 ranked team in the country.
Yeah.
Preseason. And so this year, I feel like a lot of Texas fans still have it in the back of their minds. Obviously, the inconsistencies offensively, bullpen depth question marks, just in general, like what version of Texas are we going to see today? And I mean, to some degree, you got to have confidence in postseason David Pierce teams. Mm-hmm. They made it to the College World Series every single year that this team's made it to the postseason since 2018. I actually am kind of split about this because, in retrospect, yes, I had more confidence heading into the Greenville Super Regional last year than I do heading into Stanford Super Regional this year. But in retrospect, how close that Greenville Super Regional was most of the way was crazy. And so who knows? I mean, Texas can still get 2 solid pitching performances. And this is where I'll transition into what I think we need to see out of Texas this weekend. I'll go ahead and start with that. First off, I think that, yes, you need 2 quality starts from Lucas Gordon, LeBaron Johnson. I don't think you need to see them spin 2 absolute gems like they did last weekend. But, if we can get out with them pitching 6 or 7 innings apiece and allowing no more than 3 earned runs each game, that puts Texas in a position to win because Stanford's pitching staff is the weakness of their team. And so that's all you can ask because that puts Texas in a position to be able to get the 2 wins necessary to make it to Omaha. Is Texas's lineup better than Stanford's? No, they're not. But at least on paper. But Texas has shown throughout the season that when the bats need to show up, a lot of times they can. They didn't in the Big 12 tournament, but a lot of times they can, and they have against some good teams this year. And so, you got to see Dylan Campbell continue to stay hot. Eric Kennedy's been coming through some big contributions lately. Maybe more grand slams from Jalen Flores. That'd be fantastic. But, otherwise he's had a pretty slow season, slow start to his career. But, I think there's reason to have confidence in the bats, but not enough to where I say like, oh yeah, I'm sure that, we're going to get 5 to 10 runs per game out of them. I'm not sure about that.
No, definitely. And I mean, Texas is 25-3 this year when scoring 6+ runs. So that kind of gives you a mark of how good their pitching has been all year.
Yeah.
If you can get, like I said, you cannot rely, or like you said, you can't rely on Lucas Gordon and LeBaron Johnson to do what they did last weekend. It's not saying they won't, but if they give up 2-3 runs, you have to be able to score 4 or 5 runs to counteract that. And Stanford's pitching staff, I mean, they showed it last week in the regional, showed it throughout the Pac-12. They're vulnerable. And while this Texas lineup might not be as deep or star-studded as last year, timely hitting has been crucial. And we've started to see the bottom of the order start to produce a little more as the season has progressed on. Mitchell Daly had a solid Coral Gables regional. Jack O'Dowd had a solid Coral Gables regional. If you can get those guys producing out of the 8-9 spot, you're in good position. You mentioned Jalen Flores hit the grand slam. We always knew he had that pop in his bat. And, it was timely, and it set Texas, on the right path on Sunday. So I think that it's going to be timely hitting. You're going to need contributions from the bottom of the order because, we know what we're getting from Dylan Campbell. He got one of the longest hit streaks. I mean, the longest hit streak in Big 12 history. And you know what you're getting from a lot of guys at the top. Of Jared Thomas, since he's become the leadoff hitter, just the energy he brings, gets on base at such a high clip. That guy is going to have a very fruitful career in Austin. Hopefully, he stays around at least a couple more years. But I think it's the bottom 3 in the order and what you can do, with 2 outs and when you have runners on base, because I don't expect Texas to just beat Stanford in a slugfest, but if you're the team that executes with runners in scoring position, then you're going to be tough to beat. And from what we've seen from the starting pitching, it's not going to take more than 5-6 runs. If you can get to that magic number of 6 where you're 25-3 on the year, I think you feel very confident, and at least on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Stanford line has been so good this season that if you can at least provide decent run support, again, that's all you can really ask. Another stat that I think is interesting about Stanford is they're only 5-3 against ranked opponents during the regular season, 7-4 if you include the regional. So they haven't faced a whole. I mean, I think that just goes to show the lack of strength in the Pac-12. The second highest ranked team, Arizona State was number 20 when they played them. They faced number 21 Texas Tech, number 25 Oregon, and number 20 Arizona State.
Wow.
They haven't really been tested a ton, but I guess the point I'm getting at here is like Stanford they're the number 8 team in the country. You'd be undervaluing the SEC.
Yeah, I think it
that high.
Yeah, it got to a point where, the SEC has been so dominant this year that there was almost a little, then became fatigue almost, where it's like, can we really have 9 SEC teams host a regional? Sure you can if they're 9 of the 6 best teams in the country. But yeah, just speaking to your point, obviously Gordon is going to have the matchup advantage on Saturday night, but the money line for this matchup on Saturday is even money both ways. So not even money both ways, but they're both minus 113. So
okay.
Right down the middle there. Vegas isn't giving you an inch either way. So that speaks because Texas is not even seeded and Stanford is the number 8 seed. So
yeah. Here's my concern about Stanford is that we have the tendency to let innings snowball. Like you said, that goes back to a lack of bullpen depth. I think a little bit of that goes back to a little bit of youth in the infield. That the defense hasn't been as solid. It's been decent this year, but years past it's been better. And Stanford, I don't think they run the bases as well as Louisiana did, but I think they do it better than Miami. Their strikeout rate is one of the lowest in the Power Five. I think they have barely over 450 team strikeouts on the season. I think the D1 average is at least 100 over that. So they don't make many mistakes at the plate. They don't make many base running errors. So you can't let these innings snowball. And like we've been harping on this. Texas, there's questions to whether they can keep up on the scoreboard. And just overall, I think the game management's been really solid for Texas. But it's going to be a game of chess out there this weekend.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I know Tanner Witt's probably a little bit of a different case because you're still kind of working him back from the elbow injury. But if you get into trouble on Saturday or Sunday, would you bring in Witt early into the game and try to let him see if he can dominate, 3 innings? My thing would be like, because of the injury, is he on a very strict schedule? But this is where, like you mentioned, Pierce has got to be good, and he's got to button because we don't want it to snowball. And if Stanford throws up that, crooked number and you're looking in the 3rd inning and it's 9-2, that's a game that Texas is probably not going to dig themselves out of. So you really got to avoid that. You got to be quick with the leash. Hopefully it doesn't matter with the 2 horses we have at the top. Yeah. But if it does, I mean, you saw success from Charlie Hurley last weekend, Zane Morehouse, Travis Staley. You have some arms you can turn to, but besides those 3 that I listed, there aren't too many more I'm confident with. But in college baseball, I think you got to win the game that's right in front of you. You don't plan for the next game, even in a best of 3 series. You try to win that first game, do whatever you have to do, worry about the Sunday arms later.
To some degree, too, a lot's going to depend on what version of the Stanford pitching staff we face. Like, I've been interested. Their starting rotation, it's not bad, but it's not good. Their bullpen's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Quinn Matthews, I believe, is their ace. 6'5" lefty. And he's got an ERA sub 4. He's closer to 3.5. I do remember he had a solid outing against A&M last week. 4 or 5 innings. I don't know if he allowed. It was 1 or no runs.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So he pitched Friday against San Jose State and went 7 innings, 2 earned. And then he came in that do or die game against A&M, went 4 innings, 0 earned. So with the amount of lefties we have in our lineup, that could be an issue tomorrow night.
Yeah, his last 3 starts of the regular season, he allowed 9, 18, 17 earned in or roughly 14 innings. So what version of Quinn Matthews are we going to see? And then also on Saturday, because they have 3 pitchers that are at least decent. So it's not like we're going to be getting some guy that they're throwing out that's got an ERA above 8. Quinn Matthews 3.65 ERA is pretty good for college, but beyond that, 4.87 and 4.99 is pretty average. What version are we going to get? Texas is, again, theoretically, Texas has the advantage with the arms here, or with the rotation. Stanford has the advantage with the bats. In that sense, it is similar to last weekend. I think the dynamics of the series are going to be a little bit different because this is super regional compared to just, compared to having to play 3 or 4 games in a regional.
Yeah.
But something that gives me a little bit of confidence is the fact that Texas kind of played its own mini super regional last weekend against Miami and came away 2-0. Predictions.
I picked against Texas last weekend.
Yeah. I did too.
And even looking at the bracket as a whole, like, you could tell me this Texas team is going to make the final series of the College World Series, and I wouldn't be shocked. You could tell me they go up to Palo Alto and lose 2, and I wouldn't be shocked. I don't have a great feeling, honestly. I think Texas is going to lose to Gordon, start in a close game, like a 5-4 type game, And then LeBaron isn't going to be the same LeBaron as he was last week, and I think it might be 2-and-done for the Longhorns. That's as unbiased as you can get, because that would kill me if that happened. So I'm hoping I'm wrong again, but I think it's the Cardinal to Omaha and doing it with just 2 games.
Okay. I'm gonna go opposite of you. I'll go with a little bit more optimistic.
Good.
Actually, I'm gonna say that Texas rolls through here 2-0.
Ooh, okay. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling with the Longhorn sports in the 2022-23 academic calendar. Big Directors Cup.
Yeah,
Play.
I meant to mention that. Yeah. If we want to win the Directors Cup, we have to win this. Yeah.
So
track and field, I think, still had some outstanding stuff that needed to fall Texas's way. I'm not sure how that went, but yeah.
Yeah, this would go a long way for Directors Cup. But yeah, the further out the Texas baseball can last, then the closer we get to football season. I know a lot of y'all are.
Or just the start of fall camp.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I think that's all we need. Anyway, for Shane Black, Andrew Miller, Hook'emHeadlines.com. That's pretty much it. Welcome.